Little talk about the fact that there's been a lot of cuts on both of these movies. There's that sort of ironic George Lucas quote that a movie is never finished, it's abandoned. And so you guys have done a lot of different cuts. I think when you guys were doing Endor last month, you had a different cut every week, you had said. Stuck on Neal changed its title, it's changed the sort of intended rating. So I wonder if you guys could sort of talk about just what's the process like doing all those different cuts? When do you guys decide the movie is done? Do you ever decide the movie's done? And are these ones still going to be worked on? Are there going to be more cuts?
Well, Aaron's going to have a different answer than me probably, because he does a lot of the technical stuff, so it's the frustrating work. We screen these films, we kind of consider it rough drafts, and not this one actually. I think this is pretty good for us. I don't know. Aaron probably he'll never abandon it, but I'm good with it to turn it over to distributors. But when we first screen them, we listen to the audience's feedback and we go back in, and because otherwise Hollywood, they have test audiences and we don't have that, so we kind of use the screenings as that. But I just got to give props to Alamo and Derek and all that, because we screened Endor at another theater several times, and it never looked the way we created it. And this is the first time we got to see it the way it was supposed to be seen. So, props to Alamo, they're awesome.
We're going to replace the gun that the sheriff of Endor has with a walkie-talkie. Maybe add Ewoks. I think as far as story and stuff, we're done editing. There's a few things, like I noticed there's a few shots where the color correction on Stuck just didn't balance out as well here as it did back of the editing suite, so I don't know. Nothing's ever completed, it's just abandoned.
I'm good.
Yeah, he's good, guys.
Well, let's talk, I guess, sort of on similar levels. I mean, just in the writing process. I know you Stuck on Neal started out as a one-act play, you had said, and so you sort of took it on, and then, oh, we have the writer of that too?
The writer of the play, Jeff Tom Knoblauch. Stand up, Jeff. That's not standing up.
Okay, so in terms of your writing then, was Stuck on Neal, Bent Over Neal, as it was first created, was that written with a lot of the same people in mind and ended up playing a lot of the roles, and then did that change? I know you did some degree of rewrites and reshoots. Is that something, just you could talk about that, I guess, for both movies? What was the writing process like, and what was different about them?
Well, Jeff actually wrote a short play called Penis Dialogues, and it only had 2 people in it, and that was the character of Neal, and in the play, Bob. And that was played by Derek and myself. I had a theater company, and that was the first show we did, was a bunch of short plays. So it was actually the first thing we ever did with the theater company. And then we continued to do that short play, and Jeff would come in, we would rewrite, we'd add some things to the play, and then years later, Derek said, let's do a film, and let's do it of the Penis Dialogues. And we asked Jeff, and he gave us his blessing to turn it into a feature-length film. And we changed the title so many times. It was Penis Dialogues, then it was Gay for Neal, then it was Bent Over Neal, and now because of distribution, it was a rated R flick, and then we had to get off the blue humor and make it PG-13 because it's more sellable that way. So.
What about Endor? What was writing Endor like? I mean, it's interesting to go from something, the genres are so different, and there's similarities, there's overlap, but you must have had, I think I've read you've got aspirations to do a movie in almost every genre, right? So what's it like deciding to go from something like that to then writing a gory horror movie?
Well, Aaron loves horror movies, so we're going to work on a next project together. I was like, let's do a horror movie. Aaron would love it. But as far as the writing goes, I just sat alone in a booth at a Perkins with country music playing when I wrote Endor and the Old Testament.
I don't think there's any. That completely explains the movie, I think, right there. Okay, well, I guess in terms of you guys, your collaboration, you are working together. Presumably, you're going to continue working together, even work together on that short, maybe in a different way. What's the collaboration like between you two? Is it comparable to when you were doing plays? What's changed, and how did you guys get involved together in making movies?
Well, our relationship, for the most part, is Aaron grumbling and yelling at me in the office, and then us doing insanely grueling 18-hour shoots back to back, us yelling at each other like little children, and then hugging it out later.
Yeah, that's basically it. Andrew's like, maybe we should change this, and yeah, that's that. He said no, I think only one time it actually almost came to fisticuffs, and that was on the Endor thing. You know, there was a little tensions there, but you know,
One night.
at the end of the day, we're on the same team, and we're, you know, as with all these great people here and several more in the audience, like Joe Simmons. So.
What's up?
Yeah, that's what's up. Gay Nazi #1. Let's help.
Don't ever forget.
That's right, yeah.
I am the guy that got scout.
Head through back most of
Derek doesn't want to talk at a Q&A.
I'll talk, but you guys covered it.
I've got some questions for Derek here.
Yeah, let's ask one for him. So, Derek, your performances are very different between the two. I wonder, well, one thing that's impressive, I think, about Stuck on Neal is just the physical transformations you guys go through over the course of the movie. They're interesting. I mean, you to get to that point where you're shoving Rob up against the wall and actually have it mean something in a dramatic way, you would never think that could work when you watch the first 20 minutes of the movie, but you really pull it off. And so I wonder, what goes into your performance, both in Stuck on Neal as Neal, and in terms of maybe that physical transformation, just being there day to day, and then also maybe a little bit about Endor, which I would think is a completely different sort of performance all around. So yeah, maybe talk about that.
Well, you mentioned the part where I shove him up against the wall, and that turned out a lot better than I think we planned, because that big wooden mirror was kind of hanging loosely on the wall, and when I shoved him into it, I thought it was going to fall off the wall. It made a huge crack, and it was like, oh my God, that like just.
And the reflection of himself is waving.
It was just a really happy accident. As far as like the difference between the two performances go, I don't know. What we did with Stuck on Neal was probably more what I'm used to, a very dialogue-driven piece. I've done a lot of Shakespeare, so that's very talky. Endor was a unique challenge because I had no dialogue. It was a completely, everything was expressed physically and facially, and I've never had my voice taken away from me for a performance, so I had to figure out a way to make that interesting without any dialogue. So I had to come up with other things to do, I guess. Having a lot of weapons in my hand helped, though.
How about people who are left who aren't on the cast and crew? Do we have anyone here who has questions? We'd love to hear some for anybody up here.
I don't really have a question, I just have a comment that Wetworks did amazing.
Do you want to comment on any of that and any of the Wetworks work on the movie?
It was grueling, I'll say that. It was a lot of work. But I have to say, this is the best edit so far.
I
As far as
agree.
everything goes, that was awesome. And the way it looked. Like you said, compared to what we saw before, this is pretty amazing.
And hopefully the edits just get better if there's any more edits. Not that there's gonna, instead of worse, you know, it's like.
Yeah. No, but it was fun. It was fun to work blood everywhere.
Any other questions?
Good time.
Audience questions? Yeah.
What are you guys doing next?
Yeah,
question.
right?
I've got a couple of different ideas, but right now we put everything on hold just so we could promote these movies right now, and then we'll get to something else. Something's coming.
You've got a couple more shorts, right? You've got
yeah.
Garage Sale, I think?
Yeah, I filmed a short last spring, and we still have to edit it. And Dustin's in that as well with me, and the gal that played the gal in the bar that was like, I got kids, I gotta go home, and she's one of the survivors that leaves. She's in that too, so yeah, we'll get to editing that sometime and premiere it eventually.
Are you sticking with the same sort of troupe of actors going forward with a lot of them, or maybe we should ask that when they're not there, so you can say no.
Actually, we set out purposely to not cast as many people from the first film, and when we did with like Derek, we have to make him look completely different. And we did that because we didn't want people to be like, oh, okay, they're just using the same people, and there's so much talent in Omaha, then why just reuse? But I mean, I would work with anybody in either of these films again. They're all phenomenal actors and a pleasure to work with, but that was kind of on purpose that we were like, let's not rehash too many of the same people.
So people just stalk Perkins and look for Faustus writing, I guess, if you want to roll. Any other questions from the audience? Yes?
I have a question for Andrew. We were talking about Hitchcock before the movie started. So what was your motivation for Endor, it's kind of a departure from those movies and the amount of violence in it.
Well, we talked about that in a lot of our pre-production when talking with Benito and Aaron. We're like, where do we draw the line, or like, where's that balance of violence, like actual gore and tension, which I really like Alfred Hitchcock tension, and I don't mind the gore, but I'm more of less is more. So you see, like in the first half of the movie, it's more of that tension, and then we get to the second half. So it's kind of that was our balance. Like, we'll set everything up, slowly go with it, bring that tension up, and then bloodbath at the end. But yeah, I'm a Hitchcock fan, so.
Can you imagine?
Did I answer your question? I'm sorry, I don't know sure if I did.
Yeah, you answered it.
Okay.
Can you imagine what it would have been if we'd have stuck to that original Blood and Guts?
Yeah,
Like, it would have just been, you would have had to bring a raincoat.
Yeah, as originally written, there was a lot of stuff that we decided to tamper down a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good choice.
It costs money to hire these guys down here.
What it means for really long days.
I have a quick question for Aaron, because you do the cinematography, right? So it seems like there's a lot of tension and sort of disorientation in both movies that the characters are going through, and that's definitely represented visually. I wonder if you maybe want to talk about the shot compositions and sort of your thoughts going through that, because there's a lot of, it looked like the sort of kind of steady shaky cam mixed with some more stylistic shots. So yeah, maybe talk about your influences or just the thought process behind it.
Well, there are two very different genres, of course. I mean, usually in a comedy, even a dramatic comedy, you're still looking more into the bright colors, more saturated, a little more stable, a little more, I say a little more an awful lot, don't I? But I'll say it a little more. A lot of wide shots, whereas Endor is a little more, you're almost like a member of that bar. You're actually in here, everything's a little uneasy. We're not sure what's going to happen next, and here's this guy on the porch, and there's a silhouette. So there's definitely a lot more handheld kind of stuff and more shaky stuff on Endor, since oh hey.
I did notice some aerial shots in Endor.
And there's aerial shots in Endor, yes. And there's shots of Ariel and Stuck on Neal. But yeah, we had in Endor we had the Matthew Everson. That's what I keep getting his name. I want to say Eversol for some reason.
Tell me why we did those shots.
Why we did those?
Yeah.
Because what's the real answer?
I put that in the script because I wanted to have the God's eye view.
Right.
Because it's God that's stalking them, so that was the reason for that.
Right.
I actually am interested, because we have all these wonderfully talented people up here, probably getting bored. So I wanted to know what you guys liked the most about whatever film you were in, and what do you like most about maybe the film you weren't in?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, I was in both, so I don't know how to answer that. I can't answer what I like best about
It's
the
you,
one I wasn't
baby.
in. What?
I said it's you.
I'm gonna pass the mic. I'll have to think about that one.
What I liked best about being in Endor and what I liked best about Stuck on Neal, pretty much. Endor was the first time, I'd done some theater before, but Endor was the first time I'd been in a production like that, so it was just an amazing experience to be able to, we shot out of order. That was kind of weird learning your lines, but then when you were done shooting, you were done, like you could erase that part in your head almost. So it was fun kind of in that regard. So it was a great experience. It was phenomenal. It was a lot of long weekends, so I don't regret any of it. It was fantastic. As far as Stuck on Neal, this was the second time that I'd seen it, and it just gets better, like with every viewing. Like I know I've only seen it twice, but still, Stuck on Neal was great the second time.
So
better
buy
than the first
DVDs
time.
and watch it over and
Yes,
over.
which there will be after
Yeah,
this.
so it's just a really, really solid film, and I just really enjoyed watching it. It was just a joy to watch.
Yeah, this is the second time I've seen Stuck on Neal now too, and from the first time I just thought it was, we were talking about this earlier, very relevant to today. And the characters, it's just very honest, and they're relatable, and their lives are just, you can find aspects in each character and relate to them. Endor, I'm a huge horror fan, but Endor I loved when I first read it because it's just a unique twist. There's a little more to it than just blood and gore. And then Kira, I immediately liked her because she's a very strong female type, and you don't always see that in a horror movie, or they're just running around in their underwear. So I just loved every moment. They were long, hot days, but it was worth it.
I just want to say that working with Andrew was quite a good experience. He was so efficient. I mean, we shot that bar scene in one day. Well, one day, I think, right? And it's amazing what the cameramen did too. I was very impressed with all the traveling shots. Those are phenomenal, man.
And they murdered on the back and the spine. And,
No, I mean, even in the cornfield, the traveling shots are really great.
yeah.
And the other thing I'd say is I learned a lot about movie acting from watching myself twice.
Well, from watching Stuck on Neal, I think I just really like revisiting the memories of making it and how much fun that was. And then this was my first time seeing Endor, and I was just really impressed with the performances. I mean, the two leads, I haven't met you guys formally yet, but I was really rooting for you guys. I was really pissed that you killed her in the end. But, you know, I understand why for the sake of the story. So just really enjoyed watching it. Thank you.
Best is actually the same thing about both of them. Both of them are they're very human stories. And so you can label them as a romantic comedy or whatever else, horror, whatever. But in their genres, from things that I have seen, they're very human versions of those stories. So Stuck on Neal, no matter who you're kind of picking to be with, I find myself always siding with Chelsea on Bent Over Neal and Stuck on Neal, all the versions of it. But it's very human. It's a very human, real story. It's not, quickly put together and fit into little boxes and say, oh yes, well this is the good guy, that's the bad guy, whatever. And same thing for Endor. Endor looks at first glance that it might just be a slasher, some demonic possessed guy kind of running around chasing things, but there's so much of that human element of it, of the story, of not just our lead characters, but we go into some of the other stories of their characters as well. So yeah, just that human quality that you guys brought to the script and that all the actors brought to the showing, yeah.
I'm not usually a horror fan myself, but I was surprisingly impressed, and I actually really liked Endor the first time I saw it. I'm with Chelsea. You completely root for the characters, and you connect with them in the beginning, so you want them to find themselves, and you really want them to beat the shit out of this guy, basically. And I liked that, and I was really impressed by how lifelike it looked too. And so that's kind of my pitch with this movie too, is just you gotta see this, this is all local, and oh my god, I'm not gonna sleep tonight. And then Stuck on Neal and actually with both of the films themselves, just kind of like what Walter said, they just really make you question a lot, and I love when a movie does that. I think it was Ruth, actually, hello, there she is, that posted after one of the screenings. She goes, I just felt a lot after Stuck on Neal, I just felt things. And I think as actors, that's really what we want to see, and we want people to feel those things so they can answer those questions themselves, and we can get through this thing called life. So, great job.
My favorite part about Stuck on Neal was probably because half of my family was in it, and it was really awkward, but it was kind of fun, I guess. And then my friends at the cast parties, because I would invite them, they would just be looking at everybody whoa, I just saw those people on screens, and I was that's pretty chill, yeah.
That was good. Yeah, so Stuck on Neal for sure shows you a side of life that maybe a lot of us don't get to see or know anything about or understand what somebody goes through who's dealing with those things. So I like it because of that. I think that's a great story. Endor, of course, is my favorite out of the two. No, but really my favorite thing about Endor was working with everybody. Nobody ever came with a sour attitude or a pissy attitude. We shot 18 hours and we were sweating and miserable. People had to go through makeup daily, over and over and over and over. Nobody complained. Everybody had a good time. We all joked and laughed, and we got through it. And I think the attitudes are what helped to bring to the screen what you guys saw.
I know we're almost going to be done here. We're probably running out of time. But I wanted to ask any of you, I'll use my outdoor voice. Did any of you guys catch the Easter eggs from Stuck on Neal?
Yeah.
Because no one ever got them, of course, when they're split. But I was like, maybe if they're back to back, that the connection between the two stories is that he's actually friends with Lisa,
yeah.
And they're going back to visit because she's going through a divorce.
Yeah. The first time I caught it too.
It is the first time.
Yeah, the tattoo artist.
I was like,
Ariel.
oh, I want people to get this, and I'm like, they probably won't. So I'm just
Besides those two, the tattoo artist and my friend having a divorce.
Yeah, and then Kivez says I go to my tattoo artist. I go to Ariel. She does all my tattoos.
Is it just those two?
Yeah, just those
Well,
two.
there was Clerk 1, but he was currently cut from Stuck on Neal.
All right, one last audience question. Well, we have everybody here. Anyone?
Last chance.
So, with that being said, these films, I suppose you could say, probably exist in the same universe. Is that a plan you hope to continue going forward?
Absolutely. We're making our own Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Two will combine. It'll be really confusing because Derek will kill himself.
I do have ideas all plotted out, and you might end up seeing some characters meet other characters in another film at some point. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well,
So-
go ahead.
Yeah, well, we're going to sell the DVDs. We got posters, we got postcards. We'll be out there. We can sign things, so come visit
And
us.
it's important to say, this is your only chance to buy the current version of
Oh, yeah.
of Endor, and your chance only one chance to buy Stuck on Neal at all, because we're we have no idea what's going to happen with that.
Yeah. So we're just selling it on the tour, so it's exclusive to these screenings. So
Buy a copy, have a sign it, buy a poster.
there you
Buy
go.
two.
Sell it on eBay for 50 cents.
Also, talk about these movies online. Rate them on IMDb. Say you like it. Say it. Get the word out.
Even if you did.
And please like our pages on Facebook as well
Yes.
if you haven't. That'll help us with distribution as well. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.